different direction.
What's your advice for young people? Having, you said you see the conflict and you feel it. What's your advice?
Well, I think the key is to be proud of who you are and your background. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't try to cover it up. And once you start to take pride in it, you'll appreciate what it's worth, and you'll be proud to be different. That's what I think is good about Canadian society, is they encourage people to stay true to their own cultural roots, whereas American society is known as more of a melting pot and Canadian is more of a mosaic. So just take pride in it and participate in events.
This is an interesting story, and let me share with you this thought. I travel a lot to the Middle East, and usually the flight is between European capital, Frankfurt, London, Paris, to any of the Middle East countries. And I've noticed, for example, that the crew would not speak Arabic. So they're going to London, Cairo, London, Riyadh, and nobody in the crew speaks Arabic. And I was discussing it with some young Muslims and say, I feel offended because you would think, could you imagine there's a plane coming into Toronto and nobody speaks English, for example, and say you don't have to, and all the announcement will be a recorded announcement. So I was discussing with a young Muslim, and he says, well, for myself, I would prefer to speak English. And I said, why? He said, well, people are labeling us as terrorists, so I don't want to show who I am. And for that label, and it goes back to you being proud of what you are and tell people you're wrong rather than try to hide. And it stuck to me that this young person say, well, I don't mind speaking English, I don't mind them speaking English to me, rather than say, my native language is this, and they should speak to me. So, the issue of pride is very important.
I think there's many misperceptions too, because there are a lot of Arab Christians who speak Arabic.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the Western world seems to think that Arabic-speaking people are all Muslims, but they're not.
Yeah, and the challenge here is to be proud. And how do you get that pride? And maybe the media has made, like this young person say, well, if they're labeling, people from the Middle East as terrorists, I don't want to be perceived that way. So what's your advice as a counselor?
As a counselor, well, I mean, I guess the media is important, communication, better role models really important. It's unfortunate that people aren't proud of who they are and their background. Because of all the negative stereotypes out there, I think people need to really sort of challenge those stereotypes and be very open and proud of themselves in the community and with the people they interact with.
I have a great story, actually. Once I was in Brampton Courthouse, and there was a South Asian couple that was not represented by a lawyer, and I was the lawyer for the insurance company. And the judge there, he was Caucasian, and you could tell that the couple wasn't really understanding what was going on. So I explained to them in an open courthouse in Urdu what's going on. And the judge, after we settled or resolved the dispute, he said to me, he said, that's just great that you can communicate with them and you can explain what's going on and help them out. It's like, it's great to see more ethnic people in becoming lawyers and being able to do that. So if you just try it out, and you never know, you might get positive results and feedback.
I think most cases you will get positive results. It's just how to encourage people, how to put that pride, and this media stereotype, it's our job to show it's wrong. Just because there's a few bad apples or something, it doesn't mean everybody's bad.
I would actually suggest to the youth to look for good role models. You're not, a little kid by yourself, on your own. There are people who've been there, done it. Look for good role models and just ask for help, ask for guidance.
Okay, this is one of the challenges. How do you give them the role models? Within the community, how do you show them role models?
Well, I think that comes back to CAMP and the Muslim Professional Organization, reaching out to youth and showing them that, there are a lot of good, people out there, mentors, people who can be role models to the younger generation. And, and that's the ultimate goal. We want to strengthen our community so we can help everyone, whether they're professional or not.
So how could we encourage successful people to be role models and mentors? Because everybody's so busy in their life, so I'm so busy, everybody's so busy. To tell somebody who's really in a position to be a good role model, make the time and the effort to help and contribute.
If you can set aside an hour a week or an hour a month or even an hour a year.
Let's say 2 or 3 hours. Just driving anywhere to Toronto will take me half an hour up, or minimum half an hour up and half an hour down. So let's say 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah,
Let's be realistic. Huh?
There are all sorts of ways you can help and contribute. You know, nobody's asking you to have a second full-time volunteer job. Just be able to set aside, and it all boils down to time management. If you know that this is a time that you work, this is a time that you commit to home, you may watch an hour of TV. I mean, I'm sure in between there's an hour where you can set aside.
Everybody has the time. It's really convincing.
Oh, you would be surprised how many people complain they don't have the time.
Well, I know, but realistically, I say I'm busy, but I sit and watch TV a lot. I like watching TV. So could I really have an excuse to say I don't have time? I could make the time, and we should encourage people to make the time.
Exactly, and I think if we ourselves are good role models to other people, then people will just want to, be like us, and I would hope that there would be more people like that. And I think another bit of advice for Muslim women who are out in the workplace looking for jobs, if you wear hijabs or whatever, don't let that stop you from being who you are. You should always be who you are regardless. It's just a piece of cloth that's on your head.
It's a mental barrier more than and it's how do we get people to understand this. Like earlier the lady said maybe she couldn't find a job because she's wearing hijab, and people who don't have hijab would tell you I still have a hard time finding a job. It's a mental barrier, and to find a job, one of the important things is the personality and communication skills, and people don't realize this. And how could we help young Muslim ladies to practice this communication, develop communication skills? Any advice?
Well, I mean, like you said, it's like people are putting up mental blocks for themselves. Like sometimes it's not actual barriers outside, but it's actually in our mind. So people have to really sort of overcome those kind of barriers in the mind and really sort of make some strides forward and be much more stronger and assertive in their sort of...
Well, I'd like to thank you all. We've run out of time. We'll get together soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.